trying to film content for YouTube in an open plan living area with kids and a husband. It's just so great. So great. Hey friends, welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. My name's Karla and this is Karla Created, a place where I create all sorts of different things, primarily sewing related, but I also really like to crochet and do a bunch of DIY around my house. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 items of clothing that I made, one for myself and one for each of my 2 daughters. I made these 3 items out of thrifted fabric. The fabric was brand new and I found it a couple of months ago at a thrift store, about 3 meters of it for $4. I didn't realize when I picked it up that it was actually brand new Cloud 9 fabric by one of their designers from 2018, Sarah Watson. So I was pretty chuffed when I realized this because their fabric, and that particular one, was organic cotton as well as a custom design. I couldn't find the original price per meter, unfortunately. I did have a look online, but I couldn't find the price, but I'm certain that it was more than what would have been $1.33 per meter, considering I got about 3 meters for $4. So amazing score. I had to put this fabric to good use. So let's get stuck into it. I'll show you the 3 items of clothing that I made and the process that I went through. 2 of them are self-drafted and this I used a pattern. Let's get into it. Let's talk through the top that I made for myself first, because I actually followed a pattern and it's probably the easiest one to talk through and explain. So this is the pattern that I used. It is a Simplicity pattern, S9749. I followed the this one, B. I'm lost for words. I followed this one here, but I actually had to shorten the sleeves because I was running out of fabric. I made this last. I made the first 2 dresses for my girls first because I knew that they would require a lot more fabric than this top would. So I had to shorten the sleeves, so that's why they are short sleeve, as you can see, and not the 3/4 cropped sleeve. I think I actually prefer it with the shorter sleeves, to be honest. And I went with the cropped version with no cutout detail because A, I'm not into those kinds of cut out keyhole type details, and B, I didn't have enough fabric to do the peplum anyway, or to do the longer version that you would then tuck in. I'm quite a fan of the elasticized waist as well. Recently I refashioned just a plain white tee by cutting it and putting an elastic waistband at the bottom, which is awesome because then I don't have to tuck it in to my high-waisted skirts or jeans when I wear it. It's like the perfect length now and cinched in at the waist. It's such a brilliant idea. So that was the pattern that I used, and it was quite interesting actually. I'll put some clips up of the process that I went through, but essentially it's the first, the bodice is made up of 3 panels, a back piece which is cut on the fold, and then 2 front pieces that are cut mirroring each other to give quite a nice princess neckline. Now those of you who've been watching my videos for a while know that I love a good princess neckline. I just find it really flattering, and I don't know, I guess I like the shape. So maybe that's what drew me to this pattern, was the neckline here. And now it's also very easy to make in that once you stitch the bodice pieces together, really you're just creating elastic casing around the neckline and the shoulders and then the waist using bias binding tape. And now I already had some thrifted bias binding tape that perfectly matched this top, and I almost had enough. I was about 20 centimeters short, so I just made another strip of bias binding out of this fabric and use that to sort of get by. And you can't tell obviously because it's on the inside, but I just thought it was a really great opportunity to use not only thrifted fabric but also thrifted bias tape that I purchased. And now my review for this pattern. Quite like making it. It was really enjoyable and quite straightforward. I wouldn't say that it's an easy or a beginner level because of some of the I guess, complexity with the bias binding around the neckline. And I also did mess up one of the sleeves because I didn't cut them in mirror, because they require mirror image of each other, because there's a particular notch cut out on each of the sleeves that needs to be mirrored for each of the arms, if that makes sense. So I would recommend that this is an intermediate level sewing pattern for anyone who's willing or wanting to make the same pattern. I would also suggest as well picking a size relevant to the bust measurement and not so much your biggest measurement like I did. So I picked size 10 because that was the size, the biggest size was my waist, and I didn't think it through properly because obviously I've never made this before. And I really could have actually picked a size 8 that would have fit me a lot better around the bust, and just added in the elastic at the waist that was more appropriate to my actual waist measurement, which was a size 10. So the pattern has quite a lot of give because it has the gathers from the elastic. It's very, very comfortable. But yeah, I would just suggest picking the size that's appropriate to your bust rather than your biggest width, I guess, which is what I did. I mean, that could be completely not how you're supposed to size. Perhaps I should have, modified the pattern to fit my waist and picked the size 8 because that was the right size for my bust. But hey, you live and you learn. So that's my review for the pattern. It was quite easy to follow. The instructions weren't that fantastic. They weren't as explanatory as one would expect, like in comparison to other patterns that I've made. For example, the rosary apparel patterns that I've made. She's fantastic, by the way. If you don't follow her on YouTube, you definitely should, but you probably already do because she's very, very popular. But her patterns and her instructions and her video tutorials are much more informative, and I find them a lot clearer to follow than this particular pattern was, just for instance. So yeah, just keep that in mind if you're wanting to make this pattern. I will make it again. I'm probably going to make it in the version A, but pick a fabric that I don't necessarily need to tuck in and maybe put some cute little detail on the bottom. I think it might be quite a nice top to wear to work if I get the sizing and fix the sort of gaping around the neckline here. So yeah. So the next dress that I'm going to talk you through is a dress that I made for this one. What's your name?
Enid.
Enid. And it's such a simple dress to make. It essentially is a layered dress with a shirred bodice and straps. So for those of you who've either made a dress like this, you can totally relate. They're so easy to make and so straightforward, and they're really easy to self-draft. So I'm going to quickly show you the process to self-draft a dress like this one. So what you need to do is cut a panel for the bodice first. And how you draft the size that you need is really straightforward. All you need to do is measure the bodice. So how tall you want the bodice to be. We went from Enid's waist to just above her bust line. Now write that measurement down. And then what you need to do is measure the width around the widest part of the bust or waist. 3. Pretty straightforward. And then what you need to do is double that number and you'll create one long panel, which will be the shirred panel for the bust. And now for the layered skirt, it's almost the same process. All you need to do is measure from the bottom area of the bust, which in this case was Enid's belly button, to wherever you want the length of the skirt. Or if you want to have multiple tiered panels, then you would just measure based on the length of each tiered panel. And now the width of those panels needs to be at least 1.5 times the width of the bodice panel. So in this case, the bodice panel for Enid's dress was 50 centimeters. Now I didn't have enough fabric to do a 100 centimeter panel, the next dress skirt panel piece. So I did an 80 centimeter panel, which I gathered along the top to match the size of the 50 centimeter bodice panel. All right, thank you. So I now have this is the top part, and then I have the gathered skirt frill here I like to do my 2 lines of gathering stitches and then gather up my fabric to roughly the appropriate size, making sure that it's even. And then I press my gathered fabric, so then it's not all higgledy-piggledy when I try and sew it down. And it also means that all the gathers go sort of straight down. I've had situations where I haven't pressed and I've got gathers kind of like coming off to the side, and it's not as nice. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to pin right sides together, the bodice part to the gathers at the bottom. To assemble the dress, it's very, very straightforward. I would recommend attaching the bodice panel to your first skirt tier prior to shirring your bodice. Shirring is such an easy thing to do. You just need to adjust your stitch length to around 3.5 and put your tension up to 6. Obviously, hand wind your bobbin with your shirring elastic. If you don't know how to do this, there's plenty of tutorials on YouTube that explain it in a lot more detail than what I have just here. But anyway, once you've shirred your entire bodice panel, you can then attach your other tiers of your skirt and then join the skirt together. It's really that simple. I added an additional frilled tier to the bottom of Enid's skirt because I didn't make it long enough. And I also added this thrifted little cute white ribbon detailing, which I've added to my top and also to Neve's skirt as well. I then made 2 really, really simple straps that I threaded through little loops at the back of her dress so I could adjust the straps, as you can see, with a little bow at the back, and that was it. So to make my 2-year-old's dress, I followed the same principles that I just explained to make my other daughter's dress, with the bodice panel and then the layered gathered skirt panels. For her dress though, I did mix it up a little bit because I didn't want them to be identical, and I wanted to show you all how you can self-draft different kinds of dresses using the same dressmaking principles and concepts. So for her dress, I shirred the waist to cinch it in at the waist. So I did, I think, about 3 or 4 rows of shirring to give her that waist definition. But I didn't shirr the entire bodice panel. What I did instead was create cute little elasticized sleeves and an elastic casing along the top, much like this top actually. So you have a panel which you thread elastic through, as well as a panel at the back that you do the same with. And then I also cut her, I cut on the angle under her arm to create more room for her armholes, and added a cute little frill to the sleeves. This wasn't exactly how I wanted her dress to turn out initially, which is probably why there's no content of it, because when I first made the dress, I actually cut shoulder sleeves. I cut sleeves for her, which I planned to match the style of this top. However, if you're cutting sleeves, you need to measure from the top of the bodice to the top of the back panel and double that measurement if you're wanting a gathered or elasticized sleeve like this. Unfortunately, I must have been tired that day. I did not double that measurement. I just cut the exact length. So when I made the dress and I put it on her, the sleeve band was so tight and small that I had to improvise and change things up. So that's how I ended up with the final design of her dress. And to be honest, it's probably way better anyway. And that's it. I hope that this video inspired you to self-draft some dresses of your own or for your own kids. They're super easy to make, and I really hope you enjoyed watching this process and listening to me explain this process. I can't wait to wear these outfits together and be matchy-matchy somewhere fancy maybe. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, it would mean the world to me if you gave it a like, hitting the thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe and follow me for more fun, creative endeavors. And I hope that this video was an inspiration for you to go and self-draft some new dresses or a new blouse for either yourself or your kids. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Dad? You want me to pick you up? Can we dance? Hop down to the little twirl? Hop down to the little twirl. And if you were to sublet, blah, 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 blah.